Watching News at Prime, but let's get into this discussion now. Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Trade, Industry and Competition has reportedly grilled the National Lotteries Commission Board, members of Parliament questioning the embattled board over corruption allegations. And let's get some detail now as to what's prompting these calls, and we speak to the chairperson of that portfolio committee, Mzwandile Masina, who joins us via the virtual platform. Mr. Masina, good evening to you, and thank you very much for your time. Can I start with this very straightforward question? Is the call for the dissolution of the National Lotteries Commission Board serious? And if so, what's prompted this decision?
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. We have had a number of people talking on this matter, and we decided that we were not going to be upfront to talk, to allow the national discourse. But straight to your question is that in the view of the Portfolio Committee in its entirety, 4 of the 6 board members were at one point or the other involved with the National Lotteries License Award. And we felt that that on its own will constitute a conflict of interest if it's not looked at. And then secondly, there were a lot of questions with regard to those that have been selected by the very same board in terms of their standing in society, whether or not there are no conflict of interest that exist. And it was established as a matter of fact that at least 2 of the whatever number, 10 or whatever number they are heavily conflicted. And that has not been brought forward. And because we say so, because when we put it to the committee, to the board, when they appeared before the committee, and they were very, they were not very straightforward with regard to this question, but we have established that 2 of the members. And the third is that we are equally aware that there is a member who would have been removed after issues were being raised on conflict of interest. And that matter was not reported before us. And these are the things that we pick up as we do our own investigation, because you must remember that Portfolio Committee has got a responsibility to do an oversight on the work of the ministry, including these entities.
Yeah. As you use the word upstanding members of society, I'd like to use that very characterization around the leadership of Professor Bani Pityana. He's someone who's highly regarded in the South African society. He came into this role of chairperson of the board ostensibly to clean up after the corruption that we saw fleecing this institution. How did he explain these inadequacies? Because you can't exactly call them blind spots. Or did he say these were blind spots?
Well, disappointingly, I think the chairperson of the board was very defensive, even on things when we had tried to make him understand that we had information in good authority as members of the committee. We wanted him to take us into confidence, but he came across very defensive, telling us that all is above board. And a lot of the issues that were raised were issues that needed to be answered to. And we gave them a sufficient time to even in writing, to write back to the committee so that we can, on record, then begin to analyze their answers in relation to the information that is before us to enable us to be able to do the oversight. And they have not been meeting all the deadlines. They are hell-bent at just going on as business as usual, even when red flags have been raised with regard to this issue. At worst, there's a publication called Ground Up. Instead of stating facts of what would have been raised in the committee, they have decided to character assassinate individuals, including a person of myself and member Kigaba, on spurious issues, including the fact that we supported President Zuma. there is no crime in South Africa to support leaders of the ANC. We supported them when they were leaders of the ANC, and we continue to support the sitting leadership. And that cannot be used to discredit us, because I have never been to any court of law for any wrongdoing or corruption. Neither as Member Malus.
Yeah.
6 years after he left the service, he's not been charged by any competent court of law. So that can be used for us to obstruct us from doing our job.
All right.
When we're asking relevant questions with regard to oversight.
We'll come back to that ground-up report in just a moment. Here's another straightforward question. Do you have reason to believe, as a committee, that there is corruption being perpetrated at the NLC?
Well, it's too early to say so, because our role is to do checks and balances. We cannot outrightly say there's corruption, but there is lack of governance issues that we have identified. There is lack of accountability. And subsequent to the meeting, a lot of issues have been brought to our attention, including there's a lot of questions that we now have. I think in no time, we should be calling this board to come and report to us with regard to some of the issues that have come up, including some which are being reported in the formal platforms of the National Lottery Commission. So we are going to make sure that whatever happened in the past when we were not there does not occur again, in this time around. For instance, the allegations that the entire infrastructure is run by consultant, and we don't know who are those people and how they come to being, and so on and so on. There are legal firms that were procured through Section 16A of the PFMA. Subsequently, the board takes a decision to make them a sole provider when it's a panel of contractors of legal firms. All those things raises eyebrows, and when we ask these uncomfortable questions, the least we expect, at least, is to be responded to with factual information, so that we are able to make a call whether or not there is corruption going on there.
Can I ask this of you, Mr. Masina?
Yes.
Did Professor Pani-Pityana admit to any of these things that you see as wrong? For example, 4 out of 6 members of the board were involved, as you said, with the lottery's license. That would constitute a conflict of interest. That's something very, very important. Did he concede that this was a mistake, or, as you put it, he simply became defensive?
Well, he was very defensive. So we didn't get much from Prof, and we hold him with high regard. We have no brief against him and so on. So, but with regard to the answers that he gave to the portfolio committee, all members were not impressed with his articulation with regard to the issues. He came across very different. For instance, let me give you an example. A question is put to them as a board on the appointment of the commissioner herself, that actually there were interviews, there was a process of advertisement which produced 99 applicants. And subsequent to that, that process was put in abeyance, and then another process ensued when they headhunted about 10 applicants. And even on those 10 applicants, the current incumbent was not one of them. Somehow, and they know, and I'm sure they can answer this to you, they can tell this to you, the current incumbent was eventually interviewed and appointed. And we've raised that as a red flag. But the professor says, I presided over the interview, and we put it to him. Our question was not whether or not there was an interview. It's a process that led, the build-up process that led to the appointment of the commissioner. Even today, we have not been furnished with facts in relation to this matter. Hence, I'm saying to you, I don't want to stand here, demonize the institution, because they ought to be doing good work to defend, the institution. So it will not be me criticizing them when I must provide oversight. But Where there are questions and those questions are not answered, we will obviously be obliged as a committee to provide oversight and ensure that we get to the bottom of this.
How do you respond? We're going back now to the ground-up report. How do you respond to how they are framing what happened at this portfolio committee in Parliament, and that is that this is a fight-back campaign with some shady characters who may possibly have been at the NLC in the past, and they could potentially be working with members of the EFF in the committee, members of the ANC in the committee, and you've said yourself that you were included in that as chairperson of the portfolio committee. How do you respond to the framing of this being a fight-back campaign by those who stole monies from the NLC?
Look, the approach in the portfolio committee that we've taken is that, firstly, we're non-partisan. We focus on the substance of the issues that we'll have to deal with as a committee. And secondly, I am not aware of anybody in the ANC, including myself, who has been in contact with those who are being accused. We have not been in contact with anybody. We are seeking the truth on the basis of the information that was presented by them and that is known to us. And all the responsibility they have is to clarify the committee on the questions. As a result of that, what we have now done, we have there is a resolution of the portfolio committee. We have now asked the minister to answer us those questions that we could not get answers from the board as part and parcel of the responsibility to ensure that there is oversight in that committee. So we have no brief from anyone except the facts that are before us.
I will ask this question, this final question to you, Mr. Masina, one last time.
Yes.
This board, as mentioned earlier, came into being as part of the men and women who were going to clean up the rot in the NLC. Are you of the view that they are still committed to that mandate on which they came, which was to clean up corruption? Are you convinced that they are doing exactly that?
Look, there are too many questions that are unanswered. I'm not in a position to say whether or not they can stay. What I can confirm is that I was mandated in my capacity as the chair of the committee through overwhelming consensus that we should write to the minister, because it is his purview to consider dissolving this board because of conflict of interest. And we don't believe that this board can deliver a credible process that would not lead to court, because they've not been able to see blind spots that even us, fresh as we are in the process, we could pick up people that are linked to certain institutions that are bidding for this license. As a result, the committee came to the conclusion that we have to make this recommendation. And the minister can, by the way, decide otherwise, because powers vest with him. But I can tell you that we are then, if that's a route we take, we are destined for a very long showdown, because we want good governance. We want to ensure that there is integrity, the restoration of integrity. We want to ensure that beneficiaries of the National Lotteries Commission get their dues. The numbers that we got of those that had applied and those that were awarded were appalling. So we are worried about their capacity to discharge their mandate.
All right. I think you are now saying it on the record, and you are saying it
Yes.
authoritatively.
Yes.
You are saying you have written to the minister recommending
Yes.
the dissolution of the NLC board. Am I hearing you
Yes.
correctly?
That's correct.
I'd like your words, sir, not mine. I'd like you to say those words.
We have written to the minister and put it to him that with all the facts that we have established, we would like him to consider dissolving this board. The onus is on him. If it was up to us, I can tell you for free that the time they left the door, they would have been removed because of conflict of interest.
Mzwandile Masina, chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Trade, Industry and Competition. Thank you very much for your time.